Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the mornings. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Thursday, March 13th, 2025. Time to potentially ruin another show. Yeah, we're gonna give what do we decide to use? Zoom another try today. Just sort of trial by fire and see whether everything works. Somewhere along the line, I think, let's reset everything. All my settings everywhere, I guess, are reset, including my Skype settings. Because reasons, it's kind of hard to explain, but I guess so. Now I think system alerts that I used to have muted are now no longer muted. So we'll have little thought bubbles popping up here and again as we have messages come in, including messages like, here's how to turn off those crazy sounds. And I don't know. It's difficult to know. I got used to the routine, of course, of Skype, but the computer lords of the universe have decided that it's not convenient for people who are perfectly happy using perfectly workable products to continue using perfectly workable products. And you'll all have to move to something else. And pretty soon, of course, they'll be forcing AI down your throat for it, too. And but then I won't have to make any phone calls to anybody. And AI-generated Greg will generate a raft of stories. None of them will be true. But they will send them to us, and Greg and I can go and have breakfast somewhere, I guess. So you should do the whole show this way. Many stories to update. Whether we'll be able to update any of them, I have no idea. So far, I'm unable to determine whether or not, well, the Zoom audio part, I think will work. Oh, and I think the echo is taken care of. And we may have a solution to getting the music to work. Not really positive about that one, but as I recall, having consulted with the in-house engineer a little bit yesterday, our recollection of why it was that at one point Skype was unable to deliver the music was that we had some sort of background noise cancellation convenience turned on by default that hadn't been turned on before, and I guess during an update got turned on, and that was interrupting things. Skype was assuming, well, you'll want to drown out the music and just keep the voice, right? Well, we'd like to have both. So there was a setting, we found it, and I have no idea whether it works on Skype anymore, things haven't been reset, but there's a similar setting on Zoom, and maybe it'll work, and, maybe it won't. Anyway. So we'll see how things are going. And also, it seems like one of the other conveniences of Skype was that I could be signed into the same account. And I think it's probably still the case. You can be signed into the same account on two different computers in front of you at the same time, but still get the same feed. And that way I was able to integrate the audio of Skype into the show on the big computer and receive all of Greg's notes on both of them, but follow them on the laptop so that I didn't have to manipulate the big computer and interrupt the flow of the show. But it doesn't really seem all that keen on doing all that, but maybe it'll just shake itself out. Anyway, it's a good thing that, for instance, we're not using this big computer or my laptop to run, the Social Security Administration or keep track of nuclear weapons or anything like that. Scott, I think, hit the nail on the head with yesterday's summary, saying it was essentially like we had let Dodgy and Big Balls and the Dodgy boys come in and run the show, and everything went kablooey all of a sudden because things go kablooey, except those guys are supposed to be computer geniuses, and we're just a bunch of idiots. And so, people tolerate these sorts of mistakes. As long as you can hear Greg, I think that'll be fine. And as long as I only hear myself once, then I won't be too distracted, and I'll be able to actually have a chat with him. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens. And let's see. This is a Skype window, which I guess I really just don't even have to have open at this point on the laptop, except to take a look at what Justice's lining up here. Okay, so now I'm beginning to see what's happening here. Okay, so that's right. No, I'm in the wrong program here all of a sudden. But apparently I have to, So this is going to be something new and fun every day, is that instead of my normal testing, you just have to do things anyway. While you're setting up the show, testing of the Skype connection with the Skype test call in preparation for the show, I have to go and accept invitations. What, every morning? All right, let's see. Where is my invitation? I don't see anything. Great. All right, let's see. I'll look around for Zoom things. This is why I think people, generally speaking, don't really love using Zoom for anything at all, ever. But, all right, what do we have here? I don't know, all this stuff seems to be master your meetings with Zoom recordings today. That doesn't seem to be it. Yeah, I know. Email, he's telling me. So everything's popping up, of course, on Skype. Skype seems to be working just fine. This is great. Is this what this is? No. Start a meeting? No. Well, when was this email sent is the next question. And why isn't it showing up in, the inbox? This is a huge success. Let me just state that at the outset. Let's do Skype today then. Hey, that's a great suggestion, Greg. That's what just popped up on my... that's another question. Are you all hearing the little bloops every time one of these things shows up? Skype would be great to use. Oh, here's the invitation. Okay. It probably popped up just as you started to use the... what do you call it? The Skype instead. So now I've accepted it and I've joined it, but you're probably on your way over to Skype to use that instead. I don't know. Let's see. Greg, are you there? Nope. Okay, so that's pretty cool. This is it's working great.
I'm right here. I had just muted. I had here's the thing.
All the things that could go wrong with it have gone wrong.
Right, but that's how we figure it out. The one way to look at it is, boy, we had all these glitches and such, and we had it. But on the other hand, the other way to look at it is, hey, look how we just fixed everything on the fly.
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, if it was a show about fixing things, it would be awesome.
So, I told Scott Anderson, you just have to consider this like car talk, except we're not click and clack.
It's like car talk, except we don't know anything about cars.
Right, and we can't fix it.
Or the radios were telling you that we don't know about cars with.
Right, or it's not that amusing. So the thing is, I have a list of stories I like to send you.
You do, usually. Yes.
And that way you could incorporate those links into whatever summary you do later, or Scott can, or somebody
Why
can.
wouldn't I do that? Right?
Well, the thing is, it takes me about 10 or 15 minutes to put together that list.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to have a Zoom space open for me to put those things.
Yeah.
So that means I have to do it about 15 or 20 minutes or longer before the show.
Right.
So that means that I have to set everything up, which is fine.
Yeah.
And then send you an invite.
Good.
And then I have all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to find I don't know how the invite gets to you. I have no idea.
You know what? I don't either. I just saw it, but I don't have any idea why. I mean, it showed up as a pop-up. Oh, okay. Well, maybe
you were saying that maybe you have to be on Zoom to get the invite.
Yeah. I mean, it might be that. I really have no idea. The Zoom was open. And I was looking in email, as I usually get. Zoom we use for scheduled meetings on occasion. Not you and I, but other work-related things. And I'm used to getting that invite in the email, and you click on it, and you go in. But there's also 10 other people there, and they're already chatting. So I went looking for an email invite, and I didn't see one. And I'm just sort of poking around, and then, whoop, pops up hey, you're invited, because you just started it again, I guess.
Well,
so maybe
I had opened this space this morning at 8 o'clock so I could put all my stuff in it.
And So
and
maybe
I invited you at 8
o'clock.
o'clock. And you aren't on Zoom, so you didn't see the invite, and I thought it was going to go to your email, and that's not how it works.
Yeah. No, okay, now I see what it was. Because I do recall opening up the thing this morning, but only at about 8:45 and taking a look to see if everything was running properly, and I saw basically I saw like notices of missed calls.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you weren't calling, were you? You were
Right.
probably just lining up the.
Those are my invites.
Yeah. Oh.
So
Well,
now that you're in the space, can you see the Raft
uh,
of Stories list?
no, but I'll try finding it.
Click chat at the bottom and
All
see if
right.
they show up.
Click what now? Chat.
Something called chat.
I don't know. I see team chat. Is that what we're?
I don't know.
Direct messages. There's you. There. I see your. All right. Oh no. I only have. Oh. Well, there's my notices. Incoming call. Incoming call. Incoming call. Now, where are the links? Are they up there above it? Those are yesterday's. I see yesterday's.
Yeah. So I have a whole list that says Thursday, Kagro in the morning.
Oh well, it's clearly categorized for me somewhere. Yeah. We just don't know where it lives.
Right. And so when I click this thing called chat, it just pops right up as part of the meeting, so I could see everything.
Well,
like
these
I'm
computer
put a test
fellows
message right now
are going to have
see
to
if you could find it.
I see test. You know what? It's up on the show running computer. You know what that is? Maybe that's part of it. I'm looking for it on my other computer, which was something you could do on Skype, and I guess it's something you can't do. As I see your test message, but none of the earlier ones.
Okay, because they're all in the same space. All right,
Yes.
So I could just put them again. That's fine. The other thing I learned, which was fun, and I didn't expect this, is my monitor doesn't have a camera.
Right.
So we don't do podcasts with like us grinning at each other at 8 a.m. before we're awake.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very popular thing to do, but I think people do those shows later in the day.
Hopefully. So
or in their car,
I was setting up the show.
Which is weird, yeah.
And I noticed that I had to charge my phone.
Oh.
So I plugged my phone into the computer, and Zoom, which was open, said, you must be trying to use your phone camera as part of Zoom. So here's your face.
Oh. Yeah, a little bit of the built-in conveniences of...
I wasn't expecting that, and I didn't want it, so I had to turn that off.
Yeah, and sometimes you have the phone sitting on the desk, and actually here is up your nose. So we got a couple of those going on.
Right, exactly. Especially if it's your phone camera, because like the angle it's sitting on your desk.
Right.
It's going to look up your nose. I mean, not what you want at 8 o'clock in the morning.
No.
TMI.
Really, there's just no time for that. Well, anyway, the government shut down while we were talking. I didn't realize that.
Well, the government has been shut down.
Yeah. But not because of the government shutdown we were all waiting for. It was shut down by Dodgy and the wackos.
Yeah. So here's the thing.
Yes.
The House went ahead and passed this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then left town and gave it to the Senate, as you outlined yesterday.
They sure did.
And the Senate is not going to really vote on cloture till tomorrow.
Yes.
So you need 60 votes.
Right.
And I guess the Republicans only have 53.
Yes.
So the whole discussion for the last day and the question on the table is, all right, what do Democrats do? How will they disappoint us? Or will they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
there's
the
working
answer
theory.
The working theory is they're going to disappoint us. And so
it's the default theory.
Lucy and Charlie Charlie Brown with the football.
Right.
So that's what the Daily Kos pundit roundup today is all about. So let me give you that again.
Sure.
And that's right here.
At least you have them close at hand. You have done them before.
They're all right. I can see them all. They're all in the same chain. So.
All right. I see this now. Yeah, all right.
Will Democrats stand up like in the House, or will they stand down like in the Senate?
Right.
And here's the thing. So Punch Bowl, and this is right from the pundit roundup, first story there.
Punched them right in the bowl.
Punched them right in the bowl. That's the code name for Congress because of the shape of the Capitol dome.
Oh, is that it?
Yep.
Upside down punch bowl?
Yeah. So the Secret Service code for Congress is Punch Bowl.
I did not know that.
Under this scenario, says Punch Bowl, tenaciously, stentorily, Democrats would provide enough votes to overcome a filibuster in exchange for Republicans allowing an amendment vote on Patty Murray's do a CR until April 11th alternative.
They say it's the only one they want is that one, say Democrats.
That will fail.
Yeah.
But Democrats could use it to show that they voted for their own funding plan. And at that point, final passage of the House's CR would then be set at simple majority. And
Yeah.
Republicans can pass it without requiring Democratic help. That way, Democrats don't have to claim that they voted for it, and that's their face-saving way out.
Yeah, it's not, but that's the idea.
Right. Now, Democratic senators, says Punchbowl, have also been weighing, both publicly and privately, their fears that a shutdown would be a disaster not only for the country, but for them politically. Democrats have said a shutdown would only empower Trump further, and there would be no clear path to reopen the government. Now, this is the only argument that Democrats make that makes any sense about why they would eventually go along with this. And it boils down to they don't really have any choice. When you're in the minority, the things you can do are extraordinarily limited. And even those people who say, okay, but you could at least do this, probably overestimate what minorities can do, even in the Senate. But the Democrats' point here is you don't have a normal political situation.
Right.
Musk especially, but also Trump, actually don't mind if the government shuts down. That's what they're trying to do anyway.
Yes.
So where's the leverage to let them open it up? This is Trump and Musk saying, the Democrats fear, okay, shut it down.
Yeah. Well, I think they
Forever.
are.
I don't care. Keep doing it. You don't want to vote for this thing? We'll just shut it down. We'll shut everything down. I'll decide what, needs to be open and whatnot. And Democrats are saying, I don't know that that's really a great idea.
Yeah.
And if that's the only alternative Democrats have, they might wind up voting for this monstrosity, which is not a clean bill.
No, it's not. And it's something of it's a bad idea, I think, on a number of fronts. I understand the worry, like, well, if you're not dealing with another side that has an interest in keeping the government open, then what do you bargain with? And I do think that Musk and Trump probably do think, oh, yeah, well, shutting it down is an okay thing to do. The rest of the Republican Party, the members of Congress, allegedly do not think that is something that should be done and that will be extraordinarily damaging to them and probably lose them control of the House in the midterm elections. So I'd like to try that one, even though shutting down the government is rarely a good thing to do. And also because you have an Elon Musk and a Donald Trump in favor of shutting it down, and they don't seem to be interested in following the normal constitutional rules about spending and keeping things open anyway. If they really wanted to shut it down, they would shut it down regardless of whether or not a CR passes, as we're actually witnessing them doing right now. There is no absence, there's no deficiency in appropriations now. But if you go to the Department of Education today, you will find it closed, not because a CR hasn't passed, but because Elon Musk and Donald Trump closed it because they wanted it closed. You could pass this CR and they'll still close it. I don't really see any real reason to think that it saves anybody's bacon to pass the thing. And that being the case, dirty as it is, don't pass it and let congressional Republicans do the panicking if Trump won't.
Yeah. I'm with
you.
So
I'm there on that one. And everybody should understand. I think who's doing a great job in trying to explain it. Well, there's been a couple people, but Josh Marshall has done a good job explaining the technicalities here. Chris Hayes, I guess, picking up off of his writing, did some of it on his show yesterday, I understand, just explaining to everybody that, what the Democrats are trying to say is, well, the only way for us to get our alternative CR considered as an option is to offer it as an amendment. And the only way for us to get an amendment to the floor is for us to vote for cloture so that the bill can be considered. So we're going to do that and then vote for the thing that we want, which will lose, and then they'll get the thing they want, which does suck. But we'll have said we didn't want that thing, but then it will happen. And so the question is, do you want to show what you wanted instead and have the bad thing happen, or have neither of those things happen and a shutdown occur and watch congressional Republicans sweat? I like that one. And I know it's tough on people who work for the government because they sometimes then they have to sweat whether they're going to be reopened anytime soon. They don't get paid during shutdowns. Usually they get paid retroactively, but I don't count on Republicans retroactively paying anybody in this atmosphere. Not with Dodgy looking to save money by robbing people left and right. But on the other hand, the American Federation of Government Employees, which ordinarily says no, reopen the government at any cost, says we have no reason to believe that our jobs are going to continue or that we're going to get paid whether there's a CR or not. So rather than swallow this terrible thing, which will only make the current crisis worse, we prefer the shutdown, which is a real rarity from the government employee unions.
Which gives you an idea of just how, bad things are.
Yeah, and gives you an idea of what you ought to do, because you ask the people whose jobs are on the line, what do you think? And they say, I actually prefer this risk to that risk. And Democratic senators saying, well, I have to face voters in 5.5 years, and I prefer the other risk, in fact. Well, I don't know, man.
I
Listen
don't know
to the workers.
either. I will say that
they don't do that a lot, though.
After decades of watching Congress function, not as closely as you, but, just watching as an interested observer, there are at times a difference between what Congress ought to do and what Congress does.
That's true.
And this is one of those cases. I know what the Democrats ought to do, but I have a feeling about what the Democrats will do. Yeah. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a good explainer. I have this in the pundit roundup as well. She says, Republicans run the House, Senate, and White House. So you run the government. If you have the votes, go ahead. If you need Democrats, you need to negotiate with us. Those are your two options. And blaming somebody else because your shoes are untied isn't one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's fine. But Fetterman's a yes. He's the only Democratic yes that's public.
Okay.
Hickenlooper and a couple of the others are making, I'll vote for it noises. And their excuse, as I said, is that because if we shut the government down, then Trump and Musk will decide what's open and what's not, and we can't have that. They're just not interested in negotiating ever, period. So
I guess, even though, to me, it's the most infuriating thing. Is like, well, they're deciding that now, and we do have that. We can't have that, but we'd have it. So
that's
what
the
are you
thing.
gonna do?
If the status quo were acceptable, you'd go with the status quo, which is, after all, what a CR or not a CR is. But this isn't 2010, and these aren't the same politics as 2010.
Yeah.
And so in 2025, you have to take them at their word and take them both literally and seriously.
Yeah.
And say, this is unacceptable, and we simply can't vote yes, and we'll explain it to the voters.
Yeah.
And we'll have somebody other than Chuck Schumer do it, too.
That might be nice. That would be helpful. Yeah, as the part of the interest I had in watching Josh Marshall and Chris Hayes explaining was they were also explaining what we're getting when you sit down and interview a Democratic senator who's, sitting on the fence. They will tell you two different things that, unless you know what you're talking about, don't seem facially contradictory, but in fact are. Which is, oh, no, I oppose this thing. The only CR I support, the only one that I think is feasible is a 30-day clean CR. Well, will you be voting against this CR? Yes. Well, will you be voting for cloture? Well, yes, I'll be voting for cloture in order to show you that I support this 30-day CR. Okay, but then what you're going to get is the bad one that you say you oppose. Whereas if you say, I won't have the amendment vote, but I'll tell you right here that I support that, then you would avoid, handing over control for the rest of the fiscal year and losing, and also not getting, that thing that you wanted. But you could come on the show and tell us how you feel, what you would prefer, and then prevent the bad thing from happening by voting no on cloture. But if I vote no on cloture, how will I be able to vote for the one that I support? You won't, but you will have come here to tell us that. But even Chris Hayes was having difficulty getting the senators he was interviewing to explain or to admit, essentially, that yes, in order to get to that vote, which is super important for me to have, this is the setting in which I want to declare my support for one and the other, I will thereby lose the whole thing. You are aware you're saying that, right? Well, Chris, the American people, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, long ago, J.R.R.
right.
Tolkien wrote in The Hobbit, go not to the elves for advice, for they will tell you both no and yes.
Hmm.
And, that's your basic Democratic senator getting interviewed about what you want to do.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, elves had a long perspective, and the
Well, they
answer
didn't
could
want
be
to make up
both
their,
no and yes.
they
That's
see
true,
all the
too.
sides, and, you really have to be careful about making a decision because you don't know what's going to happen.
Sure.
So,
Well,
yeah, I get
but
all of that. But it
oh,
is infuriating because it seems to be so clear to us. Like, no, you just vote no,
yeah. Well, I taught
like the House did.
people too much about the filibuster, and now they understand what the tricks are, and now
It's
they
your
don't
fault.
like it.
It's your fault.
Yeah.
All right, so here's another yes and no. This is Brian Beutler.
I do that all the time too. Yes and no. I shouldn't say it's terrible. All right.
Yeah, well, it's a thing.
Yeah.
The long tail of failed leadership. And he makes
Hmm.
the, what I think, very interesting point and salient point
Yes.
that a lot of this
Yes.
is happening because the Republicans actually did something that we didn't expect. They passed this thing in the House, despite all
Wow.
of the, posturing and despite all of the, I'll never vote for a clean CR and I'll
Right.
never, and I never
And they
have and I
didn't.
never will. And Trump called me and so I'm yes. And, we sort of expected it, but it's still pretty surprising that it actually passed. And once
Yeah.
it
Okay.
passed, Democrats basically didn't have a plan.
Oh. All right.
Their plan was to,
Hmm.
okay, it doesn't pass.
Yeah.
But it passed. Now what? Oh,
Well,
well,
interesting. Yeah. Now, I mean, if the plan was for it not to pass, then why don't we? I mean, I guess you could continue the plan in the Senate and also not pass it there.
right. So here's Brian Butler writing.
Okay.
House Republicans managed to line up all the votes they needed Tuesday to pass a partisan continuing resolution, blank check for Elon Musk. This changes the game theory in the Senate because suddenly there's a viable bill at hand to fund the government, and the passage in the Senate is the only hurdle. And assuming that's where things land, the Republicans will be able to barnstorm the country, claiming correctly, if tendentiously, the Democrats filibuster the government into a shutdown.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right. Well, we are back live here on the show. Welcome back, everybody. We're fiddling around with trying to see whether any of the settings that I can come up with on Zoom, that's the one we're using, will allow the music to go through. And, the thinking was that I think on Skype it was a matter of opting for a setting that was not the default setting, the default setting being you want to prioritize voice over everything else. And so it was just sort of suppressing the music, and I said stop doing that, and it worked just fine on Skype. I said stop doing that on Zoom, and of course this is the difference between like having a Democratic Congress or a Republican Congress. I've said stop doing that to the Republican Congress Zoom, and it said no, I'm not going to stop doing that. So you press the buttons, and legally speaking, you're obligated to stop doing that, and yet it won't.
And they just said no.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, by pushing those buttons, you've also turned off the International Space Station and launched a barrage of missiles toward Tajikistan.
That is possible. I saw the space station just last night, as a matter of fact. Not
Why
because
don't
I
we
was in
play a
space,
game?
but all right. Yeah. Well, what can I tell you? I don't know. It didn't work out this time. I'll press some more buttons, and from now on, we'll just start by start the the thing by I will hum the music for you while you're speaking.
I'm used to looking at the clock,
All right,
so
yeah.
that normally works. But
We can do that. The other suggestion was an even more complicated thing of my sharing part of my do a screen share with you and put the soundboard up on your screen, but I don't think that's going to help. I don't know.
So
I will never remember to do that.
I'll tell you what Brian.
Oh yeah, right. Brian Boyler was talking
Boyler's-
about the government and like what was happening to the country. Right. We were interested in that.
What he said is if Republicans really can pass a blank check for Elon Musk with only Republican votes, I say it's dealer's choice. Democrats will need to decide if they have the discipline and fortitude, to win the fight over the principle
Nuts.
against the backdrop of a real government shutdown.
Yeah.
You know, politically speaking, that's like telling a Democratic senator you're really brave.
Yeah.
They
Sure.
hate hearing that. It makes them quake in their boots.
Right.
What do you mean, brave?
I'm out front, like
I'm
by
not here to be
myself.
brave.
I'm out on a limb.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be more happy, says Brian, to see Democrats fight out a shutdown under these circumstances on the merits, as Tom Malinowski told Greg Sargent this week. If they just let this go, that reduces Congress as a whole, and Democrats specifically, to being just an advisory body. And then we just spend the rest of the year complaining. That's not good for holding on to Democratic voters who want to see more strength demonstrated by their leaders. Certainly, and this is me talking, not Brian, without question, Schumer and the other Democratic senators are well aware how pissed off their Democratic voters are.
I don't know how they could miss it. I mean, we are telling them that.
Yes, and they're hearing it.
Okay.
They still can't pull the trigger because
that happens.
You know, remember that old commercial? This is not your father's Oldsmobile. Well, this is your father's Democratic Party. They still haven't
That's
changed.
true.
They haven't come around to 2025 where you need to be more nimble and you need to do things that you didn't used to do because politics have changed. So Brian says Democrats could conceivably win a battle for public opinion with simple aggressive messaging. They're not demanding any policy concessions from Republicans or demanding an end to the lawlessness. They're demanding an end to the harm. They won't vote for anything until Trump and Musk end their illegal unilateral war on Social Security, veterans benefits, and cancer research. Interestingly, by the way, as a sidebar, Doge was going after Social Security and decided it would save a lot of money if they got rid of all the phone interaction between seniors and Social Security, and basically said if seniors want anything, you have to come into the office.
Yeah.
Or you can just do it online but you can't use the phone because
so comfortable with.
Exactly right. Everybody knows seniors are both mobile and completely technically literate, and so that would have been a great idea. And it was such a disaster politically that even Doge said, okay, we're changing our mind on it.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that one out, and I thought it might have something to do with the fact that they're all, teenagers and 20-somethings, and they're like, yeah, I hate using the phone, but you can't text the Social Security office just yet. So there was also the element of, well, we'll punish the old people, because if there's one thing that those kids hate more than using the phone as a phone, is it's showing up in person somewhere.
Right.
That they do not want to be doing.
Now, it turns out in the end that what's going to happen, and Brian Boyler's pointing this out, I'm summarizing him here now, and he says, in the end, we thought Democrats would need to provide votes to pass anything to keep the government open, and it turns out that's probably not the case. It seems they do not, he writes. And so the people making demands of Democrats should thus try to maintain some consistency about expectations. If you understood Democrats' leverage to arise from the presumption that Republicans would remain in disarray, step back and reevaluate, because that's not the case. Republicans don't seem to be obstacles to themselves anymore. So this would be admirable if Democrats went to the mat anyhow and filibustered the bill. It's worth a shot. But dropping the filibuster and letting Republicans enable Trump all on their own is not the same thing as helping Republicans carry a bill they otherwise couldn't pass. That would be a betrayal. That's not what this is. So at this point, there isn't much left to do, but wait and see what happens.
I guess so, although it's really difficult for me to understand the allowing, there still needs to be affirmative cooperation in order for the Senate bill to get to the floor. Democrats have to vote yes on cloture to make it happen. And I don't really know why you would do that. In the end, you end up then clearing the runway for Republicans to hang themselves. But as we know, Fetterman is going to cross the aisle anyway, and so might someone else. And all it'll take is Fetterman for it to be printed in the paper. Don't write in the paper that this was bipartisan, but they will write in the paper that it was bipartisan. And it won't matter because it will have been done. Whereas by voting no on cloture, it will not be done.
Yes. So Brian takes all of that into account and says, you know what, this is where I'm at with this, given that this is going on. He writes, I haven't had faith in the party leadership for a long time. As I've noted repeatedly, including most recently this week, we've reached the crossroads in part because Democratic leaders don't lead. It never would have occurred to them to set their party's bottom line weeks ago. No Democratic votes for these nominees. For the cabinet. No Democratic appropriation votes until the law breaking ends. That's how Republicans do it, and Democratic leaders wait to see which way the wind blows first. So we're thus on the brink of a major public backlash against the congressional party, or at least the Senate caucus. Everybody in the House voted no.
Yeah.
If it comes, I suspect it will target Democrats who vote to sanction Trump's law breaking, for the leaders who coddle them, and maybe even for rank-and-file Senate Democrats who generally vote the right way but refuse to call for new leadership elections. And depending upon how this fight plays out, I would support that kind of a rebellion. So he's warning that if it plays out the way that I suggested it will, Democrats are going to be in big trouble because I don't think that the base is really going to, tolerate it.
Yeah, well, I guess so leave it to the congressional Democratic leadership to find a way to take those situations, government shutdowns, which always, no matter how it plays out, the fault lies in the end with Republicans. Maybe there's a way for us to get some of this fault for ourselves. Oh, well, let's think about that. We had almost complete unity in the House among the Democratic caucus. Their position was to vote not to implement this bill. Supposing Senate Democrats were to vote to facilitate this bill, wouldn't that be what people were looking for? It would not. It would be the opposite. It was actually quite clear, almost unanimous agreement among Democrats. Do whatever you can in the House to stop the bill. They just didn't have this additional opportunity on the cloture vote to stop the bill. You do. That they were hoping you would use that. Yes, I understand that. But supposing we did the opposite, how would that be in terms of party unity? Oh, it would be terrible. It would be the absolute, the ultimate opposite of party unity. Well, we'll think about that then. We'll try that. And then people will understand our message.
Yeah. Well, this is a tough situation that I'm sorry we're in, but, 2024 elections put us here.
Well, I suppose you could look at it this way. If you wanted to climb to, what 1,000 feet are we at? I'm probably about 30,000 feet. Yeah, we'll go to 50,000 feet on this one. It doesn't matter.
But not anywhere near National Airport, please.
Right. And I'm not going to inform air traffic control. I think Starlink will figure it out with its AI.
They're busy. I don't want to bother them. I'll just go.
Anyway, so at 50,000 feet, you could try this. Given that there's almost no hope of Trump, Musk, and Dodgy giving a crap one way or the other what's in the CR and what's not in the CR. You could argue, we voted for it, but who cares? It's not going to be followed anyway. So it's all symbolic. And we voted for it in order to be able to say, look, we're not, knee-jerk opposed to Donald Trump. Why, we're willing to reach across the... No, hold on a second. That's what the base is telling you they don't want. Oh, well, in that case, we are for not shutting down the government so that government workers aren't left out in the cold. Well, they've just instructed you, please leave us out in the cold. Well, all right, how about this? None of it matters because there's no law anymore. Well, all right. There we're in agreement. Okay, well, we'll just remain at 50,000 feet then with no law or constitution. That's got to be good for the country. We're back at unanimity.
Yeah. Well, you remember those astronauts who were like going to
Yes.
go out for
I
2
waved
weeks
to
and
them
they're still
yesterday.
there,
Yeah.
and they're still out there 9 months later?
Yeah.
That's Democratic Senate leadership.
Oh. Well, maybe
You thought you
maybe
had
that's
a
where they should
landing
go.
all planned, and
Yeah.
it turns out you're still stuck.
All right. ISS flew right over, not right over the house, but I saw it right out the front door yesterday at about 7:15.
Well, that was a nice thing.
Yeah, shiny, bright, a little, looked a little desperate out there. Couldn't you get us back? And I understand, by the way, though they were sort of stranded there, and the other day Donald Trump said, I asked Elon, can you get them down? And he said, yeah, sure. And he got, apparently they were thinking about a mission to bring them home on a SpaceX rocket, which keeps exploding, and they've delayed the next phase of operations on that one, so everybody's still stuck.
All right, I sent you a picture just to test to see
right.
if I can, and apparently I can.
Probably. Oh yeah, there it is. Ah, I see it. Yes.
Right. Be a responsible citizen. Properly dispose of your dog's waste. Place it into the nearest cyber truck. The
It'll explode.
reason that I sent that is
Yeah.
because the other Waldman,
Huh?
who is no relation to you, Paul Waldman,
Okay, there are several running around, but yeah.
wrote a piece in his a blog called The Cross Section. The war on Tesla is good for America.
All right.
Subheading begun. This new culture war has. Yoda style.
Yes.
On a Monday edition of his program, Fox News host Sean Hannity announced that as a gesture of devotion to Elon Musk, he's buying a Tesla. As video of anti-Tesla protests played on the side of the screen, Hannity extolled the power, acceleration, and range of the model, perhaps not realizing he was making an argument for why electric cars in general are awesome.
Yeah.
That Tuesday morning.
Right. Those are supposed to be bad for Republicans.
Yeah, Trump announced he too will buy a Tesla and expressed his belief it should be illegal for anybody not to.
Wait a minute. It should be illegal for anybody not to buy a Tesla? Did he really? I mean,
This is what he said. This is what he said. To Republicans, conservatives, and all great Americans, Elon Musk is putting it on the line in order to help our nation. And he's doing a fantastic job. But the radical left lunatics are trying to illegally and collusively boycott Tesla illegally.
I see.
And Elon's baby, in order to attack and do harm to Elon and everything he stands for, right?
Yeah.
So, point being that not that he's declaring that to not buy a Tesla is illegal.
Okay.
The point is that this is one of the actually effective ways to protest.
It's been pretty effective.
It's been pretty good, and it's all organic. It's all grassroots.
Yeah. No, that's not what they believe. Of course, they believe it's being like everything again being paid for by George Soros, who should be bankrupt by now. He's paid for everything ever. But let me put it this way: George Soros paid for the boycott the way Donald Trump paid for that Tesla yesterday. It didn't happen.
Pay for anything.
Nothing. Yeah. So what ended up happening, of course, was you just watch. Well, first of all, a huge ethics violation of having a commercial for Tesla on the south lawn of the White House. And secondly, they just live televised a violation of the emoluments clause because that was a pure gift, wrung out of Elon. I'm sure he was happy to give it to him, but yeah, Trump is not cutting any check to pay for any Tesla. He might have taken delivery, i.e., stolen a Tesla from him, but I don't even think that.
He might have accepted a gift because he does.
Those are the things he does. I'm going to buy one to help Elon. Elon has 25,000 times more money than you do, Trump. But, I understand the sentiment, but there's no way he cut a check for anything. And he may also say, well, I'll give it to you for free. Yeah, I don't want it. I don't drive cars. Put that away. Go sell it and make more money.
So Paul Waldman puts together just a really interesting discussion about automobiles' identity and advertising.
Okay.
And he writes, as long as there have been cars, They've been
It's been a
invested
while.
with powerful notions of identity. Virtually
Ah,
all auto marketing is as much or more about what this vehicle says to the world about you as it is
hmm.
about what the car does. Are
Sure.
you rugged and manly? You'll be in an F-150. Are you suave, sophisticated, and successful? Smoke camels. You'll
Yeah,
be
essentially.
if you get into
Right?
this Lexus, right? Are you youthful and outdoorsy? Well, then Subaru's for you,
Hmm.
and so on.
Yeah.
So Musk didn't found the Tesla Corporation, but when he took it over, he realized if you could make electric cars cool,
Yeah.
then not only could you sell a lot of them, you might speed the transition away from the internal combustion engine. And that's what he did to make Teslas viable.
Yeah. It
And he
was
made
kind of good.
himself cool in the process, and it was good. And then he blew it all by being who he is. And now the whole thing's falling apart. That's really,
Womp
too
womp.
long, didn't read. That's what's going on here.
Yeah. Right. That's it in a nutshell. You'll have to send me a link to the thing in well, some
Yeah.
format somewhere.
Well, I'll send it right on our
Yeah.
already
It occurs
opened
to me, I think
box here.
yesterday collecting all of the links posed something of a problem. I have to open them all because then when we closed the session, like everything went
They
away.
disappear?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So we'll find
Well,
another way of handling that.
this thing also has a separate DM function,
Yes.
which we originally started to talk to each other
Right.
with. I think that's permanent,
Okay.
so perhaps I should park them there.
Yeah, go. Well, yeah, park it everywhere. I'm gonna open the links and I'll
And
just
if
leave
I
them open.
and
I
if
can
I
always
park
go cut and
and if I
paste.
park them there, I could do it at any hour of the day, and I don't have to start a chat and
Yeah,
pretend to invite you when you don't have Zoom open. I can just drop them in the DMs, and they'll be there, at least in
we
theory.
hope so. Anyway, we'll get it all. It'll work itself out. The main thing is we can hear you because this would be very tough if we could not.
Well, if you couldn't hear me, like we'd have to do something else.
Yeah.
And yeah, there were other alternatives, but
Yeah.
they all had the same issues.
Yeah. Well, we'd have to figure out each one and how it would
Right.
work. But
Yep.
okay. So yeah. Paul's right about that's the Tesla history in a nutshell for
Right.
sure.
And so for all of you viewers out there putting up with us on the fly, trying to adjust the dials and push the buttons, I do apologize, but we got to do this, and this is the best way to do it because
Yeah.
you really can't learn what works and what doesn't work unless you're doing it live,
That's probably true.
as Bill
The
O'Reilly used to say.
tests, that they
Screw it,
cover
we'll
some
do it
of the
live.
issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so boo to who owns Skype now? Microsoft? Stop doing it. Why aren't you just leaving it? They must think that we're going to transition to the super popular Microsoft Teams.
That's exactly what they do. I sent,
Mm.
you can see it on Skype.
Teams.
I sent a picture where if
Teams.
you go on Skype now, at the top is this banner that says,
Ah,
Skype is going away.
right.
Call us to transition to Microsoft Teams. No,
I
thanks, buddy.
can't. Call, just hit the button and make it work. Call us to. I can't call you. I don't understand how any of this works. All right, but I guess you can still call them on Skype for
Yeah,
now.
that's the idea. Yeah,
But yeah, well, just leave working products in place.
right.
Just do it.
Yeah, just try not to shut the government down.
Yeah,
Just because it sounds good doesn't mean that can replace something that actually is good.
no, and this is such a cycle to everyone. Like over at Google, this is the new thing that's going to replace everything. Everyone should move over. It's fantastic. People go meh, and in 6 months they say, you know what, we're closing that.
Mm.
Great, okay. I mean, they'll always have something, but
So this one is from Dan
So-
Pfeiffer, the message
yes,
box.
all right,
Why Democrats shouldn't fear the politics of a shutdown.
yeah, don't.
Some fights are worth having, even if victory isn't assured.
That's what the government employees are saying.
Oh, and he has the same observation I had. What Senate
Oh.
Democrats will do and what they should do
Yeah.
are two separate things.
All right. Well, he's citing Punch Bowl.
Hey,
No wonder.
the politics of a shutdown aren't necessarily bad. Ask Newt Gingrich.
Hmm.
That is to say, not bad for Democrats.
I see.
And if Democrats do this, it's telling the world they mean business.
Ah.
And that alone makes it a fight worth having. If Trump and Musk are as dangerous as we say, says Dan, then it's hard to justify taking a pass on the one moment of true leverage.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with all these people that say Democrats
Yeah.
should do it. I
And-
just don't think Democrats will do it.
No. Although I think you're Well, one of your senators will, but
Chris
I don't know.
Murphy will do
Yeah,
it.
he has said as much, I think.
Blumenthal is not a great interview, but I think he'll vote right.
Yeah, I
We'll
mean,
see.
they don't need a lot of Democrats to vote yes on cloture. Just what, 7, 8, I guess, will do it, and then that means the rest of them get to say, I said no and I stood on principle. Now I knew that they were going to have some yeses, but
Yes. So, they'll get Fetterman, they'll get Hickenlooper, they'll get probably Angus King.
ugh, yeah, that's right.
Schumer will say he voted yes because of some legislative loophole, administrative thing that allows him to vote on some other bill next month.
There is such a thing, but yeah, not the next month thing, but still, yeah, they're all right. Yes, they'll find their ways.
So they'll
Angus
find their
King,
way.
Maine, like thoroughly under siege
Oh, right now,
from
it might
angry
not be
Trump, and
It
still,
probably was going to be Angus King, but you're absolutely right, given
hmm,
the fact that he's attacking Janet Mills. Maybe not Angus King.
yeah. Well, they'll find. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. And I guess what you say tomorrow for the cloture
Tomorrow,
vote?
closer, tomorrow morning.
All right. That's Friday. We're still here. I'm still
Yep.
here. You can
Yep.
watch, and you can message me on any one of 7,000
That you won't
platforms.
see.
Yeah. All right.
That's a great. We have a wonderful system of communication.
Yeah.
I have 3 different ways of messaging David that he won't see,
Right. Exactly. So,
and it's not his fault, by the way.
right. Nothing is my fault.
Well, it's your show.
Right.
It's all my fault.
By 11 o'clock, the final word will be that this was someone else's fault. I'll tell you who after this.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Okay. We still have the opportunity to talk about other stories and send them if you have anything else that we've pushed out.
Let me
by
give you a
discussing the tech.
smorgasbord of New York Times stories. You could at least look at the headlines.
Yeah, sure.
And I will explain the theme behind them.
Smorgasbord.
This is story number 1, which says, the headline, Europe expected a transactional Trump. It got something else. Europe has been banking on the United States that wanted to make a deal on tariffs and trade. With little progress, it's reluctantly starting to hit back. Story number 2, an untradeable market. Trump sows profound uncertainty for stocks. And story number 3 is Trump's big bet, Americans will tolerate economic downturn to restore manufacturing.
Oh, yeah.
So there's actually a plan behind his tariffs. They're not going to work, but the problem is he thinks they will. And taken all together between Europe and the stock market, masters of the universe, and the voters,
yes,
people don't seem to understand that Trump is a supremacist. That's what drives him.
Supremacist. Yes.
Yeah. Whether it's white supremacy or
American
supremacy over Europe, or whatever it is. That's why is Trump doing this? I don't get it. I thought he was transactional. No, he's not. He wants to show American dominance over Europe. What part of this is hard for you to understand? Well, I don't understand what he's doing in Gaza. That doesn't make sense internationally. Well, you don't understand. He wants to do something that will make himself and maybe his family a lot more money.
Well, that's
all he cares about. That's not even transactional. You don't get a choice. Nope. We're not negotiating with you.
I guess that's true.
I'm telling you, you're out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level at which you could say he's still transactional. It's just you guys are not going to want to operate on that level. Bribe him. He'll say, okay.
Maybe. But what he's really trying to tell you is
I'm
the alpha. Everybody else is going to have to listen to me, and I'm going to make sure that that's what happens. And there isn't any negotiating. And that's why it's pointless to negotiate on a CR, by the way. But it's all part of the same thing. And Democrats are part of the group that don't get it. That, you have to fight back and oppose rather than try to deal. You can't deal. There's no deal to be had. You're not working on transactional equal ground by any way, shape, or form. His idea of transactional is, what he did with Zelensky. We have all the cards. Do what I tell you. That's the only way he operates.
Right. And that wasn't even a transaction. It was just a demand.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not transactional. That's what I'm saying. He's a demander. And so,
now I hear you. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And so I don't understand why Democrats don't get it. I don't
Hmm.
understand why Europe doesn't get it. I think Zelensky gets it,
Yeah.
and
All right.
so
That's a good
everybody else
point,
needs
then.
to get it.
That's true. I mean, we spent the first
Wall
4
Street
years being
doesn't
told
get
he's
it.
transactional. He's
He's not.
transactional. He's transactional.
He isn't.
And I guess it was easy. It was easier in the first term to hammer it into transactional shape. Oh, so people gave
Because he
into
had
him.
people surrounding
Yeah.
him like Mnuchin who really were transactional. And so you could work with them. I can't work with Trump, but I could work with Mnuchin at least.
Okay.
Et cetera, et cetera. That's how Wall Street felt.
That is interesting. Okay. Yeah. The tariff thing, and as you were saying, as the American people, having difficulty understanding where he is and how he's dealing and all this. I guess part of that also comes from the fact that, they're just purposely telling you 18 different contradictory things about tariffs all the time. I saw the brilliant Mark Wayne Mullen on TV admitting finally, yes, tariffs are a tax on the American people, but yet it will be awesome and they won't pay them. No, wait a second. You misunderstand. I think he then went on to say, well, the reason we need tariffs is because if we have tariffs, then you can have free markets.
Well, the bottom line in the article is it won't work because the public isn't that patient.
Oh, okay.
And that brings us to 957. So
right.
Another show
to 958, which is fine. And so the 1 minute break will start in 30 seconds. And music will happen. You at home, I believe, will hear it. Greg, I'll just have to hum for you. But yeah, thank you for helping us through. We're finding our way. I appreciate your patience with it, Greg. And as for the rest of
the voice works, the rest of it is extra.
Right.
So I'm going to try next time we do this, which won't be Monday because I have a dental appointment exactly when the show is.
Okay. Boom, boom. I just started the music.
Yeah, and and they said you can't do it by Zoom. You have to actually show up in person.
Oh, well, yeah, all right. That's it. Pretty soon that will be remote. You just get one of those home laser kits, and it will be remote guided, and they'll clean your teeth that way.
Oh, it's it's like that TV commercial about the guy taking his appendix out. Shouldn't you be doing this?
I don't know what I was thinking. All right. Well, all right. Not Monday then. Wednesday. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Oh, there's a little bloopy sound. Oh, we're going to have a bunch of those bloopy sounds now. Unless, of course, I go into the sound mixer audio hijack and turn off the sound. Oh, no. I guess there's nothing doing with regard to that. Oh, that's turning off the overdrive. Well, that's not going to do it. But if I turn the sound down all the way, no. All right. It's a lie. I guess that's going to be since it's a system acknowledgement and not specifically actually coming through via Zoom, I guess there's no way to deal with it. All right, so a couple of bloopy sounds is a fair price to pay for having the information for you and for Scott Lee. Oh, Scott's out today. All right, so then there's no purpose for this whatsoever. But I do appreciate having the links. I will have to do all of the various work in getting the summary together today. And I don't know, I guess this will make it easier and we can have it all on one computer. We'll figure this out eventually. It may be around the time of the midterm elections, but look, you aren't going to be comfortable with events between now and then anyway. So I don't see why you should enjoy a quality produced show between now and then. You should be as uncomfortable with this as I am. That's our organic connection. I have a way of coming through the radio, which isn't a radio, which is a computer, and making you as uncomfortable as I am. And isn't that what you pay for in the end? All right. Well, all of this stuff is worth having, and makes no difference in the grand scheme of things, as it turns out, at the 50,000-foot view. We found it. All right, here's what we got. I mentioned to you that the federal employee unions actually say a shutdown is the better option, and it's not just me saying so. And in fact, it wasn't even me claiming to be the one to say so. I was saying that the government employees were saying it. But More to the point, it is Josh Marshall saying that he has spoken to the Federal Employees Union and found out that this is what they're saying and has told me, and I'm telling you now. Biggest federal employee unions say, it should say, but it in fact says. But I suspect he's spoken only to the AFGE. I don't know. There are other unions. Maybe he's got more now, and that's why the confusing headline. Biggest federal employee unions says shutdown is preferable to Elon/Trump CR. And it is interesting, by the way, everybody is adopting this formulation, I think unconsciously. Whenever we're mashing Elon Musk and Donald Trump together, Donald Trump gets shortened to Trump. Elon Musk gets shortened to Elon. The same amount of letters, Muskelon, but Musk Trump somehow doesn't have the same, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, the impact that it has. If you say Elon, that's his first name, and it's informal, and, he formally occupies no position whatsoever in the federal government, and yet, yada, yada, yada. Oh, by the way, yeah, right, that reminds me, one of the other super dumb thing that's going on. Let me give you this information, and then we'll go to the super dumb thing next. Josh writes, federal workers obviously don't like government shutdowns. Most of them are furloughed during them. Others are forced to continue working without pay, which sucks even worse. But in a letter addressed to members of the Senate, which I obtained, Everett B. Kelly, head of what I believe is the country's biggest federal government employee union, you could Google that and find out, the American Federation of Government Employees, asks senators to vote no on the House-produced continuing resolution, and they're all going to agree to do that, and says that a shutdown would actually be preferable to passing the bill, which needs to be understood as, it needs to be understood as a permission slip to vote no on cloture. And we'll see whether it comes around to that. AFGE is particularly struck that even as the Senate prepares to debate and vote on the continuing resolution, the Trump administration has announced its intention to effectively destroy the Department of Education, regardless, this is my point, regardless of whether Congress approves or disapproves of that decision. It reads. It also says they categorically reject the idea that voting against the CR means voting for a shutdown. They're telling them you don't have to have the political cover of having voted for an alternative. Honestly, nobody's going to care about that. One thing I guess I've learned along the way is that the procedural nuances, while not lost on the public audience, or at least not, Democratic base political junkies, they understand it, but yeah, I mean, in general, I guess I should have said it the other way around. The general public you could explain it to them all day long. They're just like, I don't know. If it passed and it happened, that's the thing that matters. And they're not wrong in that analysis. But you tell them, well, I'm so afraid people will blame us for the government shutdown unless we vote for cloture. Nah, they're not getting, no. I mean, they may, if they're going to blame you for the shutdown, they'll blame you for the shutdown, no matter what happens with cloture. Please don't let cloture stop you. Anyway, I should get through this right. What the AFGE said is, look, we categorically reject the idea that voting against the CR means voting for a shutdown. And that's always the worry. Well, if we vote against the CR and it doesn't pass and the government shuts down, then they'll say, why didn't you cooperate and go along with it? The AFGE is telling you, we understand what the situation is. The CR is so terrible that A, it's actually preferable that there be a shutdown, and B, even if it weren't, we're telling you we understand that voting no on a CR is not the same thing as voting yes for a shutdown. It may have the same practical outcome, but a yes vote is recognizable as different from a no vote, and we're telling you we see that and why we see that. All right, let's see. Where were we here? It also says, they categorically reject this whole construct. Then they go on to discuss that the administration just unilaterally canceled the collective bargaining agreement with TSA workers and declared the agency union-free. That is also not going to go over very well with one of the other unions, right? This paragraph, Josh says, stood out to me, and this comes directly from the letter. With thousands of federal workers either fired, placed on administrative leave, or at immediate risk of losing their jobs, AFGE members have concluded that a widespread government shutdown has been underway since January 20th and will continue to spread whether senators vote yes or no on H.R. 1968. That's the CR, I guess. Under the current CR, federal workers are being treated no better than they will be if government funding ceases Friday night. Yes, it is true that workers who have not yet been fired are at least drawing a paycheck for now. But if H.R. 1968 becomes law, a measure that ignores the administration's brazen refusal to carry out duly enacted laws of Congress and further erodes Congress's power of the purse, AFGE knows that DOGE will dramatically expand its terminations of federal workers and double down on its campaign to make federal agencies fail because there will be nothing left to stop the administration for the balance of fiscal year 2025, if ever. In other words, they recognize, look, if you go forward with this thing, you're just giving, all you're doing is clearing a roadblock to everybody focusing on DOGE doing what it wants to do and Trump doing whatever he wants to do. It doesn't matter that you're appropriating money in certain ways and for certain functions. He's going to ignore it and turn it off if he doesn't want it to happen. Or he's going to allow Elon Musk to turn it off if he doesn't want it to happen. Or he's going to allow Elon Musk to turn it off by accident because he thinks he doesn't want it to happen and later realize he does need it to happen and turn it back on again. The point is that there's very little reason to believe that the administration cares what gets appropriated and what doesn't. And by the way, this also works in the opposite direction. If they were to shut down, if the Democrats were to change their mind, even if Republicans were to join them, and say, this CR is not ready for prime time. We're going to turn off government funding, or we want to do it in order to prevent the administration. Let's say all the Republicans somehow come to their senses and say, oh, Trump's terrible, Musk's terrible, DOGE is a terrible idea. It's better for us. Let's use the DOGE approach to things. Because that seems at least, it's stupid, it's reckless and careless, but it does seem to be somewhat effective in terms of smashing things and turning them off, right? The DOGE approach was always, well, if we want to control the budget, we should turn it off entirely and then rebuild it in pieces, turning on the parts that we think are okay from the ground up. Terrible way to do it, but it's effective in the sense that it got vast swaths of the federal government and the employees to say, I'm out. I don't have a job now. I'm not going in, and I'm not going to accomplish that thing that Elon Musk doesn't like me doing anymore. I mean, whether or not they were justified in thinking that, I don't know. There's courts that say no. You're actually justified in going back to work and you should expect to get paid for it. But, we'll see how many divisions the court has and whether or not they can enforce it. But that argument aside, what they're saying here is the Trump administration will simply order things to take place anyway. And they have something to rest on. We haven't been talking about it yet, but I guess... Whereas, where we've been talking about, what was supposed to be the power of the purse and the appropriations clause that says, well, look, Congress makes these spending decisions. You can't turn them off unilaterally. That we've been focusing on for a while now. But there's also, I imagine, they're bandying this about in the White House counsel's office, the Anti-Deficiency Act, which is, it's an existing federal statute and an old one at that, which essentially enables what you would deem to be essential functions of the federal government to continue even in the absence of any appropriations to pay for them. In the instance of a complete and total government shutdown, a complete and total failure to appropriate any funds whatsoever for any federal function. It is still a matter of federal law that under the Anti-Deficiency Act, what's the deficiency here? The deficiency of funds. We don't have any money for it. So in other words, a complete failure to appropriate anything for the military wouldn't necessarily mean that the military doesn't function. The Anti-Deficiency Act says, go ahead, keep functioning. And something you can do with the military. I order you to keep functioning. Well, I'm not getting paid. Yeah, well, I order you anyway. Well, that's kind of what you signed up for. And I imagine you'll be seeing some super aggressive use well beyond accepted bounds to use the Anti-Deficiency Act for Trump to issue executive orders saying, I order you to do these things, including fly me to my golf resort, do whatever it is I need you to do. You know, if there are 6 employees left at the Department of Education that I meant to keep on, Linda McMahon and a couple of top lieutenants who are going to, maybe they'll be running the things that we were reading about yesterday in the plan for destroying higher education that, what's his name, Max Eden was recommending. Well, let's use the Office of Civil Rights to enforce the opposite of civil rights on people with a massive and oppressive investigation into everybody we don't like individually. Stupid idea. And you said you were going to close the Department of Education. Yeah, well, those 6 guys, that stays open. Well, not in a government shutdown. Well, yes, because Anti-Deficiency Act, and here's an executive order saying that they have to keep working. They're, in other words, deemed essential. Will they do it? Sure. You should know that by now, but we just haven't been talking about that yet. But yeah, the big point here is that I think AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees, recognizes that Trump recognizes no limits. The excuse will be, the thin veneer of excuse will be, well, I don't know. I was told that if I just say the words Anti-Deficiency Act, that will, that'll do. Other lawyers will say, no, it doesn't cover that. That's not the intention. Yeah, well, sue us in court and we'll see you then. And in the meantime, we're going to do these things. If you appropriate the money, they'll say, I don't care how you did it. We're going to divide it up differently. We're going to turn this function off and we're going to turn that function on with double the money just because we say so. If you don't give them the money, they'll say, to hell with it. Anti-Deficiency Act, we're doing it anyway. So anyway, Josh continues, in any case, there are lots of details in a letter that runs more than 2 pages, but I thought that this was interesting simply because it's really saying something. If the people who take the biggest hit from a shutdown, federal workers, or at least the largest single union representing them, are saying that it's better to risk that shutdown than to vote for this bill. It is really something. And, of course, to vote for cloture so that you can get a stupid symbolic vote that you're going to lose on an alternative is to say, well, among other things, we don't even think you federal government employees are smart enough to understand what we're doing, even though you've been watching Congress closely for your entire career. You understand what it means when we say we're going to vote for cloture. You know that means that the bill's going to pass. They're saying we'd rather lose our shirts, again, as frequently happens with government shutdowns, than see you surrender on this. I just don't know that message is being received. So too bad and upsetting. All right. I said that there was something else that I needed to bring to your attention that was super stupid. Although now I've reminded myself of the way that Max Eden article, and I wanted to read you all the other terrible things that they have in store for higher education. But there's 2 other super stupid stories which be read together, and I think they might even both be from CNN, which will no longer shock and surprise you because you've likely heard the stories already. But in the middle of all of this nonsense about government efficiency and we've got to cut here, there, and everywhere and fire all these people because of all of the needless expense of paying them. at the same time, we have, and I thought I had stuck this aside somewhere, and now I just don't see it for some reason, but I can tell you the upshot of it was, and I think I can find it if I look on my Blue Sky feed. In the middle of all of this stuff, and as I told you yesterday, there was a brief moment in which we were discussing the ongoing fascination that Americans have with this idea that the ultra wealthy have some sort of superpower in their work ethic, and that they love to work around the clock and make a big deal. Is it in Politico? Is that it? Okay, I was looking for CNN. They make a big deal out of how, I love working, and that's the thing. That's my superpower. I work weekends, LOL, laughing till I cry emoji. But of course, it's not a superpower, and of course, it's easily explained. I've always been fascinated by this idea that the rich and ultra wealthy are like, I just work around the clock. That's what makes me so successful. And sometimes it can be a thing that contributes to the initial success. That's true. But when they go on and they've been, among the ultra wealthy for 10, 20 years, and they make out like this is what's keeping me rich, or I'm so different from everyone else, and that, I work so hard, that's why I deserve to be so rich. And when you've been that rich for like 10 years, what working that hard means, and getting up early in the morning and working around the clock and working weekends, what that means as a ultra wealthy person is very different from what it means as a person, scraping to get by with their business startup. But even when they're working in a startup and they have people working for them, when working so hard and waking up early in the morning on every day and working around the clock means that there's a team of people dedicated to executing your every whim, it's a lot easier to think about getting up earlier in the morning. When getting up early in the morning and heading to the office means I'm going to be beaten down all day long by being forced to dance to someone else's stupid tune when I know this is going to lose us money but make him money, well, that's a lot harder to do. And anyways, but speaking of catering to your every whim, and speaking of doing it on government time, this perhaps shocking story via Politico I saw circulated widely online, and different people were excerpting different parts of it, but I think you'll be surprised, maybe if you haven't seen this story, to hear what's going on. It's a Politico piece entitled, "Who's in Elon's Ear?" and DMs, because, of course, that's how he actually communicates. Sophia Kai, maybe C-A-I? I don't know what she says. Kai, Sai. You'll have to ask Sophia. And Adam Wren, like the Carolina Wren, which is frequently heard just outside the window of the KITM World Headquarters studios, have written this piece published yesterday. Who's in Elon's ears and DM? I'm interested less so much in who's there as what they're doing, but that's in here too. Musk's most trusted advisors, says the subheader, remain a tight-knit group of executives who have followed him from his companies but lack political experience. And this is in Politico, so it's a bad thing to lack political experience. Also bad to run the country without any political experience, as it turns out. Even though people say they love political outsiders, they want a political outsider perhaps as a leader, but they want political insiders in place who know how to implement the outsider's vision. The vision for Donald Trump here is, no, we should all be outsiders so that we all are incompetent to the task together. Well, here's the story. Unlike traditional Washington power players, because we hate them here at Politico, Elon Musk doesn't have a deep bench of policy wonks, think tank researchers, or Hill veterans feeding him white papers to bone up on policy, not unlike President Donald Trump during his political debut. From the corridors of the West Wing to the steady drum of right-wing voices on his X feed, Musk has assembled a makeshift brain trust of Silicon Valley loyalists, Trump world heavyweights, and online ideological allies who have helped shape his worldview, which also helps explain why his worldview is so dumb. Remember that we learned the other day that, like, a big input via X is, Data Republican, who, is a super serious kind of techie something or other who lives in Salt Lake City, something, blah, blah, blah. Husband is a federal worker, but screw federal workers, to hell with all of them, and also doesn't really understand deeply what she's reading and subject to the same misunderstandings as Elon Musk. Oh, $50 million in condoms for Gaza. Nah, you just don't understand what's going on. All right. Well, anyway, without losing focus here, I'll lose focus elsewhere by continuing with the article. His most trusted advisors remain a tight-knit group of executives who have followed him from his companies but lack political experience, just like the subheader said. This, according to two people familiar with Musk's circles. Wow, two whole people, eh? Sounds right, though. Among them are Musk's longtime friend, Antonio Gracias. I don't know whether he says Gracias in pronouncing his surname, but if you just look at it and say, oh yeah, I know a little bit of Spanish, Gracias. Well, I don't know. He is the former alongside the former Boring Company, CEO Steve Davis, that name we heard a lot yesterday, and his wife, whose name we didn't hear, I don't think, Nicole Hollander, the former head of real estate at X. Real estate. It's Twitter. What? Okay. And vice president of people operations, as they call it, at SpaceX, Brian Bielde, maybe? Bjelde. Bielde. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, among the politicos, Musk is particularly close with his top political advisor, Chris Young, the former GOP field organizer who was originally brought in to advise Musk during Trump's campaign and currently serves as treasurer of America PAC. Young has turned into Musk's right hand on all things Washington, from penetrating the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to handling personal logistics. Now, what's interesting is I didn't read this article all the way through last night, but the first example that they give is actually about personal logistics. They don't actually explain, what do you mean penetrating the CFPB? And it's not known whether, I don't think, from the description of what Chris Young does, whether it was like, well, here I am in Washington, what should I be destroying first? And Chris Young I could see someone like, with some political knowledge saying, ooh, you know what? The CFPB, let's do that first, because that's like the brainchild and baby of Senator Elizabeth Warren. And if we destroy it, that undermines her power and credibility and reputation in Washington. It's really going to make them mad. Plus, I know that you, Elon, are interested in having a banking function grafted onto X, and CFPB is going to prevent that from happening because it's a terrible idea and it will result in a lot of consumer losses. So let's get rid of them so that we can get to stealing those consumer losses. So it wasn't so much that he said, here's how logistically and legislatively and legally you would dismantle CFPB. We don't plan to do it legally. We don't plan to do it legislatively. But this is the name of the office. This is where they're located. You should go in there and you should turn off all their accounts. Okay. Now, but again, they don't, give an account of him telling Elon how to do even that, which, isn't particularly sophisticated. Oh, yeah, well, my advice is ignore the law, go in there and smash everything. Well, that's not great advice, but, it's advice. Instead, though, they say he handles everything from penetrating the CFPB to handling personal logistics. And then they give an example of him handling personal logistics. Well, clearly that's going to have to be something high-minded and complicated, right? That only a Washington insider or a tech insider or some strange combination of both, like he's supposed to be, could figure out. Here it is. Now, understand this on two levels. One, this is a story about him not having any particularly good personal logistics chops, in my view. But, maybe there's some detail about this that I'm missing and I don't know about that isn't reported here. And him undermining the dodgy message and ethos, if that is an ethos, 100%, all in one fell swoop. Upon Musk's request, Young procured a massive TV for Musk's office. His office where? His office in the Eisenhower Executive Office Building. Okay, he got a big TV for him. Why did he get a big TV? So he could play video games on a giant screen, according to a person familiar with the situation who is granted anonymity to speak freely. And I think that they'll need that anonymity because, wow, really? That's what went on? And I know, again, the right takeaway from this, the initial takeaway is Elon Musk just told us, what makes me so super effective is I have superpower. I never stop working, which is why I need a giant TV screen in the executive office building, the old executive office building, so I can play video games. I thought you were working 24/7. Oh, I am. But for me, as a rich guy, playing is working. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. One more segment to get through this. So I don't know what faded out and what you heard, but I mean, I just thought it was astonishing, but I guess ultimately not all that surprising, that Elon Musk saying his superpower is working 24/7, and LOL, everybody is just leaving the field. It's like the opposing team leaves the field 2 days a week. Ha ha ha. I'm such a hard worker. That's why I am a, multi-billionaire. And, here it is right out in the open for everybody. And here's what I want you to do to get my, by the way, I think, what did he take? Like the historically, what was historically the office of the Secretary of War, now known as the Secretary of Defense. And now they moved that whole operation to the Pentagon, of course. But what would have been an extremely important, large, spacious office in this old style thing. This is now called the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, EEOB. Used to be known back in the day as the old Executive Office Building. It's a stately looking building, in some ways more impressive looking than the White House, which is right next door. But it's where you would park. Well, it used to be where everybody worked, and it was that way so that everybody could assemble at cabinet meetings at the drop of a hat. But anyway, it's this nice, grandiose old building, and the Secretary of War suite. It's old school. It's got big cavernous ceilings, fireplaces, etc. All that, some mahogany paneling and brass lamp fixtures and leather couches and all that stuff. And now a giant TV. Why? So he can play video games. Why are you playing video games? I thought you had an entire federal budget to rewrite and an entire federal government to restructure. I thought that you were working 24/7. That was your superpower. But again, like we say, mix it in with the stupid article that bothered us first thing yesterday about, hero veneration, billionaire I've lost the power of speech here. Veneration, not renovation. And renovation would be putting the television in there. But veneration. Everything they do is work, right? Including playing video games, because LOL, people don't understand. And if you did understand, then you'd be a billionaire too. So clearly you don't. And it's really just, look, it's a matter of luck. And then at a certain level of richness, you can do whatever you want and pretend it's work. It helps clear my mind. Yeah. You know what, though? I don't doubt that that's a possibility. Right. And, sometimes people who are slightly or incredibly neurodivergent will tell you things like that. And, I've had experience with people I know inside the family and out who say, there's certain mental distractions, which for some people would prevent you from getting any work done, that for others is like, well, that's just the background noise. I need to filter out other background noise. You could make an excuse, but the thing is that he would never accept that excuse from anyone else except people who he, believes are on his team. If Big Balls says to him, I need to have a video game system installed in the office where I'm working so I can do my dodgy work for you, he'll believe it. If some longtime governmental employee who's actually a subject matter expert, the world's foremost subject matter expert, not only on the substance of the policy they're dealing with, but how to pull the levers to make things actually happen, also says, for instance, I need to be able to have, to take a break in the middle of the day and do some yoga and clear my mind. But that makes me more productive morning, noon, and night. No, that will be, yoga. We're getting rid of your yoga. Are you kidding me? The government's paying for your yoga room. Look, the government doesn't even pay for coffee in federal government offices. That was a great point that I saw somebody discussing a couple of weeks back on Blue Sky, saying, the Office of Government Efficiency, this Doji thing thinks it's rooting out inefficiencies and waste, fraud, and abuse, et cetera, et cetera. But, people have been talking about paring down waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government for so long that very little has escaped. And, perhaps people don't even know, they don't realize as they work in their private sector jobs. Like there would be a mutiny in many private sector places of employment if there was no employee break room where coffee was provided by, made by a coffee maker that the company has bought and installed, and in some cases subscribed to a coffee service, such that coffee is free for employees. It's just a morale thing, a productivity thing, whatever. That doesn't exist in federal government offices because, that doesn't pass the waste, fraud, and abuse smell test. If you want coffee because it makes you personally productive or you like coffee, buy your own damn coffee while you're there. Or, as most employees in some of these offices have worked out for themselves, there's a coffee fund. You got to pay. You put money in the jar, and there's somebody in the office is designated to make sure that gets translated into the purchase of coffee with these private funds so that there's coffee in the office. But no, they don't let federal government funds, taxpayer dollars used for coffee, rawr, rawr, yargle, wargle, how dare you. Now, taxpayer dollars are, in fact, used for coffee all the time in the private sector. Why do we say that? But doesn't the private sector pay for the coffee? Yeah, and then they deduct that as a cost of doing business, and it comes out of taxes. So, whatever. But in the meantime, you want have video games there? Yes, sure. For you, because I believe you when you, the guy in charge, say you need it for productivity. I don't believe anybody else or their stupid excuses for why they need their stupid things, coffee or whatever. Widespread, almost universally recognized as kind of an effective working tool, but not paid for by the federal government. However, I don't know whether the federal government paid for this TV or the installation was done by federal workers or anything like that. They could have avoided all those pitfalls, but I don't believe that he thought that was important. I believe that he probably may have procured the TV himself, but I bet he made government workers install it. But who cares? Because it's being used to play video games in a place called an executive office building. What are you doing? Now, meanwhile, I guess the second level that really kind of disturbed me about this is, well, here's a profile, but the brilliant minds surrounding Elon Musk. Who's got Elon's ear? Well, there must be brilliant people because Elon's ear is brilliant, right? If it wasn't, he wouldn't have so many billions of dollars. We still believe this crap in this country. Well, who is this super genius? What was the super genius thing that you did? What made the papers, right? Well, maybe it's a problem of the reporters. I don't know who to hang this one on. Not, being discerning enough. Or like, I'm sure there was something smarter, more savvy, whether politically or tech-wise or both, that Chris Young has done. But why'd you make the papers today, Chris? Embarrassingly enough, at bottom, without any more detail about this, let me get this straight. Your genius move was you bought a TV. Well, is it bigger than any TV on the face of the planet? Is it a bespoke thing that you arranged for a friend of yours at Samsung to specially produce? Or did you order a TV from Best Buy? Is that why you're in the newspaper? That can't be it, right? What if that's it? That's what it says. Upon Musk's request, Young procured a massive TV. Okay, but I could do that too. But he got it from Musk's office in the old executive office building. Well, I probably wouldn't be able to get a TV past that. That's true. Like they would say, what the F are you doing trying to bring a TV in here? It's for Elon. Let him bring it in. Anyway, and I'm bringing it in. Why? So he can monitor world events? No, so he can play video games. Which, by the way, and another level of this thing, as many people let me know via Blue Sky. Remember, he's not even playing those video games, really. He's having someone else cheat for him so that he can have a high-level character when he does play. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, this all a little bit stupid, to say the least. And then I was kind of wondering, well, wait a minute. Also, by the way, isn't Elon Musk a huge tech genius? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. What's the difficulty that you think Elon Musk had that meant that he needed someone else to procure a TV screen for him? Well, I'm very busy. Yeah, maybe. But it's too. Like, I'm running the Office of Government Efficiency. You know what would be efficient if you wanted a TV? Go to Best Buy and buy a TV. Or get online, order the TV. You're very busy, have them deliver it. Fine, right? Job done. I got to call in somebody else for this? And to think, no, I have a realistic vision of myself colonizing Mars. But holy crap, how did you just press some buttons and make a TV appear here? Like, you're going to have to master that technology before launching a probe to Mars, man. This is not really a thing. But I don't know who to blame for putting it in the newspaper. I'm curious to know whether Chris Young or somebody who looks up to Chris Young thought that was a great story about how adept Chris Young is. Or is it that, I told the story and these reporters were so impressed with it? Or did they really just want to say, look, I want to tell the story of Elon Musk wasting everybody's time and money putting a video game screen in. But if I tell it this way, it's a story about his advisors. If I tell it that way, it's tattling on Elon Musk. So maybe a very savvy way of getting that shiv into Elon Musk's back. I can't imagine Donald Trump being super happy about reading the story that Elon Musk is bringing in a video game system, right? Anyway, so there's that one. There's more. There's other people who may or may not be doing serious things. For instance, Katie Miller, that's Stephen Miller's wife. She also advises him. It doesn't really discuss the fact that she's married to Stephen Miller. Maybe they assume you know that as a Politico reader. He also maintains a close relationship with Janara Peck, Musk's contact on Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign. Peck, DeSantis' former campaign manager, ran America PAC last summer and continues to oversee it, although I thought they just said that was really Chris Young. Oh, well, she's the, I don't know what, executive director of it, and Chris Young is the treasurer of it. Musk has had a non-traditional political education, devoid of experienced bureaucrats or Washington insiders. But that ad hoc approach, combined with personal circumstance and his experience leading Tesla through the COVID pandemic, I don't recall that there was any special skill to that, but maybe there was, is what continues to inform the Musk we see today. I think I read the rest of this and I thought, man, this is not all that interesting, but there's a number of other influences on him, and it's worth reading, but golly, there are many other things that are worth reading as well, is all I can tell you. But I wanted to add in particular this other thing, playing off of the video game angle, that I thought you might think was of some interest, and you may or may not have seen this one already. CNN reported the other day, Kurt Devine, Casey Tolan, and Audrey Ashe teamed up to put this piece together under the title, Trump official tasked with defending dodgy cuts. Okay, Trump official tasked with defending dodgy's cuts. What was she spending her time doing? Posting fashion influencer videos from her office. What? Wow. And here's a video compilation of all of this is an astonishing thing. She's, doing the whole influencer thing, putting on different outfits and posing in front of the camera and then posting it to, I don't know whether she used Instagram or X or what, who cares? But all of these pictures, not all of them, but a vast majority of them of late are taken in her office at the OPM building, the Office of Personnel Management. She's not managing personnel with her time. She's trying to do a side hustle on government property while working for the big effort to make the government more efficient. Seems like a firing offense, but then again, the governing principle here is my friends can do whatever they want and my enemies will be punished by whatever means I decide. That's the gimmitarian, authoritarian worldview. So here's the story. As the Office of Personnel Management oversaw the layoffs of thousands of federal workers and pressed others to justify their positions, right? Tell me 5 things you did today. I'll tell you 5 outfits I put on. The agency's chief spokesperson repeatedly used her office in the middle of all of this for a side hustle, aspiring Instagram fashion influencer. And in case we don't get through the article the whole way, I should point out that, okay, so now we know Instagram is what she's using. Was she in fact a fashion influencer? I think she was a wannabe fashion influencer. I don't know. I can't comment on her fashion sense. She looks perfectly good, in all the little outfits and stuff. I don't know if I would have said that's someone I want influencing my fashion. But what kind of influencer was she? How many thousands of people were following her for fashion advice? 0 thousands were following her. She had 800 followers. Now, I don't have an Instagram account. And I assume, though, that I could probably put together more followers than that, just generally speaking, based on my experience with Blue Sky and Twitter previously. Like, I had more than that, right? I think you're still an aspiring influencer if you're working with 800. But also, if you're working with 800, you don't have to feel like, gosh, I have to feed the monster, even if it's really inappropriate for me to be doing this on government property and in my office during work hours. Which it is, even if you have thousands and thousands of them. But I guess I'd understand where the psychosis came from that told you this would be a fine way of spending your day on the job. But not if you're talking to 800. I got to feed all 800 of them. Now, followers are followers and you want to keep them happy. But, I'm not taking time away from any other jobs to do this. She was. And it was a job you, the taxpayer, were paying her for. Whoops. In at least a dozen videos filmed in her OPM office, political appointee, and I don't know if I'm getting the name right, McLaurin, it's like McLaurin, McLaurine, but maybe she says McLaurin. McLaurin Pinover, 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 I don't know. I don't care. You don't care. But that's the name in case you want to spell it and look it up. In at least a dozen videos filmed in her OPM office, she modeled her outfit choices for the day while directing followers of her Instagram account to a website that could earn her commissions on clothing sales, right? If you want to, how do they say it there? Shop the look. That's Instagram fashion influencer lingo for, do you want to buy the clothes that I have on so that you can be like me, wasting everybody's time and government resources and self-centered? You can do it, or at least you can dress like it. Anyway, on the same day, OPM sent a government-wide memo pressing federal officials to identify barriers they faced in their work. To what barriers? The barriers to swiftly terminating poor-performing employees. So here, do you need help learning how to fire people? Call me, but not until I'm done with this video. On the same day, she posted a video blowing a kiss to the camera with the caption, "Work Look," and the hashtag DC influencer, which she's not. Her Instagram account linked to a site where viewers could buy the $475 purple skirt that she wore in the video, in case you were wondering what she was spending her money on, or rather your money on. One watchdog group said her videos could, they do, run afoul of rules restricting the use of government property for personal benefit because, while in the workplace, she was using a website that pays content creators commissions from the clothing brands they promote. Former OPM staffers during the Biden administration also told CNN that they were all offended by Pinover posting as a fashion influencer on government property while defending mass layoffs of other federal workers at a time when the Trump administration officials have accused career employees of being lazy and wasteful. Well, these are, of course, political appointees being lazy and wasteful, but lazy and wasteful in neglecting the job of calling you lazy and wasteful. So maybe it's all okay in the end. Your number one job as a leader is to protect and support your people, said Jack Miller, who preceded Pinover as the politically appointed OPM communications director under Biden. So instead of fighting tooth and nail to keep your team, we're posting fashion videos. It's absurd. Pinover, who started her job at the federal government's Human Resources Agency in January, has issued numerous statements backing the Trump administration's moves to lay off probationary employees and offer buyouts to tens of thousands of others. When OPM sent federal employees an email last month asking them to list 5 bullet points of things they had done in the past week, Pinover described it as a commitment to an efficient and accountable federal workforce. She's not part of that, but it is a commitment to it. Pinover did not respond to a list of questions, obviously, and then deleted her Instagram account, which was at Get Dressed with Mick, MC. Like, I guess that's her. Does she go by Mick as a nickname instead of McLaurin? Get Dressed with Mick. And then she deleted it just minutes after CNN asked about it. Now, on Instagram, where she had about 800 followers, Pinover's posts were adorned with hashtags like DC Style and DC Influencer and Soundtracked, with hits like Sabrina Carpenter's Busy Woman, which she isn't. She had posted as recently as Tuesday when she uploaded a video showing herself typing on her office computer. Her account did not identify her as a federal employee. The videos were filmed inside the office of the OPM communications director on the 5th floor of the agency's Washington, D.C. headquarters, according to 3 former OPM staffers. The office is across the hall from a secure annex, which has become a hub for workers from Doji, Dodgy as we call it, the cost-cutting effort, pushed by Trump ally Elon Musk. I saw it and I was like, are you kidding me? That's my office. A former OPM communications staffer, who asked not to be named out of concern for retaliation, told CNN. She's the spokesperson for the agency that's advocating the firing based on performance and efficiency of the rest of the government workforce, and she's using government property as a backdrop for her videos. You get the point, I think. The rest of it, of course, is interviewing other people who find it to be an outrage, and it is one. I just wanted to just sort of point that out. That's what the Team Dodgy is actually doing with their day, posting fashion influencer videos and playing video games with giant TV screens that are magically procured by tech geniuses. I wonder whether they ordered it from Amazon.com. You know, there is another tech genius across the street there that, could have told you how to get one of these TVs. It would be pretty easy. All right, let's see. Bunch of other things that I wanted to bring to your attention. Here's one that is off the beaten path, I would say. The Washington Post wrote it up. Oh, yes, I'm forgetting to reread the titles and sources of all my things. This is going to be difficult to get into the habit. Washington Post, I want to get on to the next thing. In the style section, arts and entertainment, as a matter of fact, but it's got a political bent to it. Who's our writer here? Philip Kennicott. Not a name we call all the time because I guess style section, but sometimes it's relevant. Here's an interesting thing. An outgrowth of the dodgy, I guess I could put it in air quotes, effort to sell off government properties, including like every federal building in Washington, D.C., which stupidly enough, it can't work. And then they erased them from the database and yada, yada. Well, this is a problem you probably hadn't given any thought to. And not because, you're stupid or ignorant or anything. That's quite untrue. But it's just one of those things. And when you mention it, you'll say, oh, yes, right, exactly. Whereas other people will say, people more, who actually are ignorant of the way things are in Washington and elsewhere. Well, what? We have that? Yeah, visit a federal building. You'll find out about it. Here's the title of the piece. What it could mean to abandon the government's huge art collection. Yes. And now the dodgy fans out there will be art collection. That's waste, fraud, and abuse. Why does the government have an art collection? We don't need art. We don't need that. But even Trump recognizes the value of it, right? He's got a whole initiative. We're going to have beautiful architecture for government buildings from now on. And I don't know how he's going to make it come to pass, but he's spoken out for no good reason about the importance of things like that. So even he recognizes it. But of course, anything that he didn't do himself, well, that's stupid architecture. We got to get rid of that. That's dumb art. I want good art, like Trump Tower, which is gold. Well, we may have a difference of opinion about what represents good, worthy artwork. But yes, there's a huge government art collection. And it notes in the subheader here, art has a way of disappearing. And sometimes through neglect and sometimes through theft. But will the GSA's plan to dump federal buildings speed the process? It's just a good point, something to think about, which I'm sure Dodgy has not. Art has a way of disappearing. Paintings are fragile, photographs fade, and even work made from durable stone and metal requires maintenance and care. It's just one of those logistical points you'll learn if you own one. But sometimes it just vanishes. Off walls, out of attics, carelessly misplaced, accidentally destroyed, or purloined from museums, office buildings, and warehouses. And you got to look out for that one. I've definitely seen people say, some of this stuff, if you sell off the building, what do you do with this fabulous sculpture that happens to be integrated into the building and now is no longer owned by the federal government? Billionaires are the sorts of people who, A, would think there's nothing wrong with me stealing it, and B, have the money to pay people to go and pry it up and bring it to their house. Anyway, so things get displaced, misplaced, destroyed, purloined, right? That happened, here's an example, to a painting by John Sloan, one of the original, is it Ashcan? It's Ashcan. It's just, I don't know how you, I think I've seen the terminology before. The Ashcan School, but I'm not certain if they're talking about like ash can, like garbage can, or is it, well, if you're sophisticated, you understand it's Ashcan. I don't know. You tell me. But he's one of the original Ashcan school of painters who specialized in depicting the gritty reality of American cities in the early 20th century. That to me argues Ashcan. I get that. In 1934, Sloan painted a bustling, gaudy, noisy city scene called 14th Street at 6th Avenue. And he did it for the Federal Public Works of Art project, the earliest of the Federal Depression-era efforts to give employment and succor to unemployed artists, which, naturally the Trump crowd would be saying, yargle bargle too, unless, of course, they could steal it and sell it and make $1 million with it, in which case it's worth it. The work hung in the office of a senator, Senator Royal S. Copeland, a conservative Democrat from New York, closely connected to Tammany Hall until his death in 1938. When Copeland's office was vacated for a new tenant, the Sloan painting ended up next to a dumpster, whence it was rescued by a congressional staffer. It remained in private hands for more than 60 years until it was rediscovered and returned to the collection of its rightful owner, the General Services Administration, GSA, which is to say, of course, to the American people. Preserving that collection, more than 26,000 works, including many commissioned during the darkest days of the Depression, will become infinitely more difficult and perhaps impossible if the Trump administration follows through on plans to terminate more than half of the dozens of staff spread throughout the country who maintain and protect the nation's art. Look, the art exists. We own it. It needs to be maintained, or it loses any value that it might have, whether it's to be sold off or ends up being purloined. We hope that's not the case, but we own it. We have a responsibility to maintain it. We're only talking about dozens, some number of employees around the country who actually do it. And so, what's in the grand scheme of things, the harm? But of course, they'll view it as savings. You fire people, that's saved money on payroll. But it's lost money on the value of the art. But not if we steal it and simply privatize it that way. Sloan's painting, by the way, was recently, or relatively recently, evaluated on Antiques Roadshow as part of an effort to publicize the GSA's efforts to recover lost art from the WPA era, and it was appraised at $750,000. But the price tag is irrelevant to the larger story, which is the care and preservation of the many thousands of works created during that period, as well as the art acquired by the United States both before and after the New Deal. That includes a vast trove of more recent works commissioned as a part of the GSA's Enlightened Art in Architecture program, which seeks to make new and renovated federal buildings more humane and symbolic of the nation's values. That's the kind of thing that Donald Trump would ordinarily shake his fist at and say it was a waste of money, and Elon Musk too, likely, until, of course, he found out, it's worth $750,000. Maybe I'll steal it and put it in my house. But at least that way the government isn't paying for it. Not to maintain it anymore, it's been stolen. But what about the value that's lost to the government? Well, you were never going to sell it anyway.
Radio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right. Well, you get the idea. And I just thought you might find it interesting to know that there was such an art collection and that, the logistics of running a government actually include that too. All right. I'm handing things off to Justice Putnam and the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy coming up next right here. I've been in his way for long enough. Let me hand it off. We'll see you tomorrow.